Hello, lovely people, and welcome to Laurel Artistry. Merry Christmas, or should I say, Pippin Christmas. Because in this video, I will be using some Sculpey to make an ornament of my favorite hobbit, Peregrine Took. I find what looks like a good skin tone to use, and I debate for a bit how much I might need. Drink some hot chocolate, and then get to kneading the clay and forming it into a nice ball. And then I roll it out. I had nothing else, so I just used the handle of this tool here. I had to roll it pretty thin to get enough width, but it's alright. I cut out paper patterns of all the pieces I need to make it easier to get the shape and scale I want. I lay that over top of the clay and then cut it out. You know, this process kind of reminds me of how I cut out the dough when I made a gingerbread mousse tirith one time. Since I mentioned it, it's probably only fair to show you a picture real quick. Anyways, back to Pippin. Pippin's been a favorite character since I was like 6. He is the character that is seemingly least fit to accompany the Fellowship. Very young, overly curious, and impulsive, not to mention weak and lacking in real discipline and wisdom. But maybe something about him choosing to go on a quest he's so ill-fitted for is part of his charm. And now we'll start on his coat. Gonna mix together some green, blue, and brown to get the color I want. Mixing this stuff is such a pain. And it made my fingers all green. Rude. I roll that out. And I place the jacket pieces on top. One thing that I find fascinating about Pippin is, despite him feeling rather out of place on the quest, his youthful curiosity ties into Tolkien's theme of providence really well, which, paradoxically, makes him incredibly essential, even as he does foolish things. It is as though Tolkien, the Catholic that he was, took Pippin right out of that 1 Corinthians passage about using what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. I keep working on cutting out the rest of the pieces. We've got his trousers here, and the red for a Christmas hat, brown for a pipe and his hair, and a bunch of little pieces that go in various places. After cutting things out, I assemble all the pieces. I have no idea if I'm using any of these tools correctly. I don't really sculpt much at all. So don't expect the finished product to be the most amazing thing ever. One thing I enjoy about Pippin is watching him mature. When he sets out from Rivendell on December 25th, by the way, he's a boy who can't even be bothered to study maps or properly prepare for the journey. He's nobly willing to follow his friends and go, but he's far from understanding of how difficult the quest will be. But even so, he, though not bound to complete the task like Frodo is, still never turns back when it does start to dawn on him that he's in over his head. And when he and Merry are captured by the Uruk-hai, this is the first time Pippin really is forced into thinking for himself. Merry is a bit injured, and we see Pippin step up to do what needs to be done. Showing his cleverness, as well as putting his impulsive nature to good use, he's able to think and act quickly. Using a moment of conflict between orc groups to cut the ropes on his hands, loosely tying them again so he doesn't get noticed. Also dropping his elven brooch to signal he's alive just in case. And, together with Merry, tricking an orc into untying them so they can escape. Not all of this made it into the movies, so you might see less of his cleverness there, but it's still present. Speaking of the movies, he wears a scarf in those, so I give him a scarf here. I've been trying to make it slightly 3D, so I add in some extra clay, particularly to the skin bits, since those are the flattest parts. Try to smooth that out a bit. I need to add his eye, and then more clay on his face. Add some fold lines to his clothes, and smooth out the clay a bit with some rubbing alcohol. Mostly just doing that right now to test if it's effective at all. I then add more fabric folds and other details. I'm not sure I have all the best tools for this, but these were the tools that I had lying around. I think one of these is actually just something that had the tip break off. Oh well, I make do with these. I also almost forgot to give him an eyebrow. Now to smooth things out a bit again. Attempt to make curls for his hair. This method was inefficient because it just got stuck and was hard to get off. Would not recommend. I use the scratchy tool a bit, and of course, I need to add hair to his feet. Now to create a background piece that'll help with stability and sort of bring the ornament in line with my art style a bit. I use a jar lid as a template for my circle. And when that's done, I trim and clean it up a bit. It's not perfect, but oh well. I add a hole at the top and smooth it out a final bit before baking. After the clay is baked, I get started on painting. I wanted to give his scarf some candy cane stripes for added Christmas flair. By the way, I'm sorry the focus is off at times. I know that's a bit annoying. I'm not the best at painting 3D stuff, so the stripes get a bit messy in places. I really do say a bit a lot in these videos, don't I? After the scarf is done, I add a touch of rosiness to his skin, diluting the acrylic paint I'm using with some water to make it a lot thinner. I wanted the style of this ornament to be reminiscent of some of my other artwork, so I sort of shaded in a similar manner to how I'd shade a lot of my digital art. Another notable instance for Pippin is when his curiosity gets the better of him and he looks into Saruman's palantir. As foolish as looking into the palantir may have been, even in that encounter, Pippin showed his resolve and strength of character. He was painfully interrogated by Sauron himself, and yet he revealed nothing to him. It's possible that stronger men may have buckled under the fear and dread, but our loyal-hearted hobbit, as scared as he was, stood firm. I paint in Pippin's eye and give everything a bit of a black outline. It's a little messy, but since I want it to look sort of like a painting, it's not a big deal. After looking into the palantir, Pippin is brought by Gandalf to Minas Tirith. Now completely separated from Merry, this is one of the final big steps away from childhood for our young hobbit. I use some gold paint to give him a few buttons. And add a couple light reflections to his eye. Clean up some of the stripes on his scarf while I'm at it. And now to paint my background piece. I paint a border in a bit of a darker shade of blue than the center. Try to even and smooth things out a little. And then I paint some snowflakes. Pippin goes through a lot in Minas Tirith, from becoming a guard of the Citadel to saving Faramir's life. But the moment that always stood out to me is one that was actually changed in the movie, probably because they wanted to have all 4 hobbits in the climax. Before I get to that, though, I'll just mention that I add more individual details to each snowflake. Now, what happens in the book is that after the Battle of Pelennor Fields, Merry is still recovering. So when they march on the Black Gate in a last effort to distract Sauron, Pippin is the sole hobbit there to be a representative of the Shire folk. Pippin took on this role, fully expecting it to end in his death, because it was his duty to do so. No longer was he naively following his friends into danger. He knew the weight of this mission. He knew there was little hope. And yet he knew he needed to do it. For the fate of the world, but also for his friends. I don't know, I just find it really inspiring. I line the edges with some gold paint, in the inner ring as well as on the outside. I also add little dots of gold amongst the snowflakes. This makes me fear that Pippin won't mesh well enough with the flashy background, so I paint some hints of gold onto him, which I then immediately regret. Oh well, too late. Time to glue him onto the circle. Then I paint a little smoke coming from his pipe, before covering everything in Mod Podge. Once that's dry, I add a metal loop. And then add a green cord to hang the ornament from. Okay, all done. Time to hang it on the tree. I know most of what I talked about doesn't really tie into Christmas that directly, but Pippin is a really special character to me. So thank you for watching and listening, and I hope you have a good holiday season, and I'll see you in the new year. In the meantime, have a happy Christmas. Ciao!